Hello and welcome everyone. In this opening video for the Firepower Threat Defense series, I want to focus on an overview of different types of firepower appliances, and I also want to clear some confusion that goes along with the terminology related to this product. The first thing you should know about firepower systems is that this is just a snort-based intrusion prevention / detection system, open source system that was previously known as SourceFire. This product was available in the market for many years. Now, what Cisco did with SourceFire is that they bought it in 2013. They acquired this snort-based detection system and rebranded it to Firepower. Now, Firepower is technically the most recent name for the product. It was previously known as FireSight or Firepower with power uppercase, or maybe just P uppercase. But don't get confused here. This is just marketing term, and this is marketing spelling. Again, the most current name for the technology is just Firepower with all but F in lowercase. Okay, this technology, this product is also known as next generation IPS, NG IPS. So whenever you go to the Cisco's website or just take a look at one of the Cisco's book and they mention NG IPS, it means that they are talking about the original SourceFire IDS IPS functionality. Okay, now to make things more confusing, what Cisco did is they came up with a new product known as Firepower Threat Defense, FTD, which is now slowly replacing the original Firepower, the original next generation IPS. And why is this the case? Now, Firepower Threat Defense is actually a mix of the ASA functionality with Firepower IDS IPS capabilities, plus some additional features that were added to the product to make it even more flexible. And this is what Cisco now calls a next generation firewall, NG-FW. Now, some people will also refer to this as next generation firewall / next generation IPS, because in reality, as I just said, a next generation firewall does not only offer firewall functions. It is next generation because it also offers IPS functionality. So next generation firewall, this is going to be the same thing here. Next generation firewall / next generation IPS, you can simply call it next generation firewall. And this is talking about the Firepower Threat Defense unified image, which is also including the, as I said, next generation IPS function, the original SourceFire code. Okay, so just to make it clear once again, because it is pretty important so we're all on the same page with the terminology, whenever you see the term Firepower, and now the only one that you will see is going to be all lowercase, but first F is capital. This is talking about next generation IPS functionality, the SourceFire. Now, when you see the term next generation firewall, this is actually a combination of the original ASA and next generation IPS, so regular firepower. Okay, and these two terms, they are the most up to date. So you will also sometimes see Firepower with power uppercase, FireSight, but this is generally deemed as legacy terminology. Okay, if we were now to take a look at the evolution of the ASA and also firepower systems from Cisco, so SourceFire rebranded to Firepower, we would have to start with two separate appliances. It would be obviously the well-known, cool, old-style ASA firewall, and we would have our FireSight, Firepower next generation appliance, which we use purely for intrusion prevention and intrusion detection. So we come up with two separate platforms One is providing firewall functions, and the other is acting as IPS. Now, Cisco realized at some point that it would be good to add those IPS capabilities to the ASA platform, like what they offered with legacy 4200 series, just to make the deployments easier or simply allow certain customers to upgrade from the legacy IPS to a next generation SourceFire code. So as a result of that, we came up with a single appliance, the ASA Firewall, that was upgraded with the module, and specifically it was called Firepower Services Module with power uppercase, which is just how you can run next generation IPS on the ASA. So yes, you can do two separate appliances. You can do next generation IPS on the ASA, and finally the most recent change in the approach, product I should say, related to firepower technologies from Cisco is Firepower Threat Defense, which is just a single image that is run from a single appliance. So we will have just one management console, and this image is going to be offering those firewall and also IPS capabilities. Okay, so if we were to break down those different functions offered by a single unified Firepower Threat Defense image, the functions that are kind of like related to the firewall itself, to the original ASA platform, it is going to be stuff like stateful inspection, like application level inspection, translations, access lists, routing. So a lot of things you were normally doing in the data plane, plus also a packet forwarding, and this is going to be performed by the ASA engine, which is also sometimes abbreviated as LANA, Lina. This is just a fancy name for the ASA code on the FTD. And then the firepower functions, so obviously the intrusion detection prevention capabilities, application visibility and control, URL filtering, advanced malware protection, stuff like that. This goes along with the next generation IPS functions. And as I said, there is also going to be some other features that you can run specifically on FTD that are kind of like not related to firepower or ASA platforms. And it is going to be pre-filtering, security intelligence, and also a few other smaller features what you can run on FTD, but not, for example, on a firepower or ASA appliances. Okay, any type of firepower system, or just the security system that includes the firepower component, it is going to be deployed using two types of devices. We will have a management appliance, which is what we will use for administration, and we will have our sensor, which is eventually going to be placed into the data plane to enforce our policies. Okay, so the management appliance is now known as Firepower Management Center, FMC, and this is the most recent name. It was also previously known as a SourceFire Defense Center, or maybe Fireside Management Center, but FMC is going to be the current abbreviation, and it stands for Firepower Management Center. Okay, in terms of the sensor, just the units that we will use to enforce our policies, we can go for the ASA with an additional module, with our Firepower Services module. This is option number 1. So this is again when we are dealing with a single ASA unit, which is running two different codes, ASA and Firepower, or we can go for a set of physical and virtual appliances. Okay, and now what appliances you will be able to deploy, will be able to purchase from Cisco, it will eventually depend on what type of functionality you want to use. Okay, so if you want to focus on IPS functionality, like you don't want to use a firewall, or maybe you have a firewall already in place, you just want to go for NG-IPS, This is where you can go for 7,000, 8,000 series of firepower physical appliances. You can also deploy next generation IPS on integrated services routers, generation 2 or 4,000 series. So this is all physical stuff. Or you can finally go for a virtual NG-IPS, like when you want to use it in the data center. And then if you want to combine NG-IPS and firewall functions into a single appliance, this is where you will be looking at Firepower 21, 41, 9300 series devices. Of course, the difference between those platforms is primarily in the amount of resources that you will be able to use. Stuff like supported throughput, inspections, and so on. You can also go for most of the ASA appliances. Like if you have one of the ASA X series devices already in place, except for these two, 5505 and 5585, you can re-image the ASA with this single Firepower Threat Defense image. Or you can also go for a virtual version of the FTD NG-FWV. Now, as a side note here, the virtual stuff is obviously for in most cases, you will find it in the data centers. But what's going to be the difference between this image and that image? Well, this one obviously gives you, since this is next generation firewall, it gives you not only firewall, but also IPS capabilities. So we can use it to control the traffic, and you can use it for detection prevention. This only gives you IPS IDS functions. But now the other difference is that, well, I believe that in the Cisco's software download center, this image is now used when you do the upgrades, versus next generation firewall V. This is what you will use when you plan to do a new deployment. So this is something you might actually want to check before you download it and deploy in the network. Okay, and one more thing that I want to show you is the documentation. Just a quick overview of the documentation in this session, because this is also another place that people get stuck, at least initially when they work with Firepower for the first time. So we will go under security, and there are going to be actually multiple ways how you can get to the same exact document, which is what is going to make your Firepower or this Firepower Threat Defense configuration guide. Okay, so let's take a look at 2100 series. This is going to be for Firepower Threat Defense. Now let's take a look at one of the Firepower IPS appliances. Let's say 8000 series. And let's also open FMC, maybe FMC Virtual, and maybe also next generation firewall Firepower. And maybe one more. Let's try to go for the next generation IPS Virtual. Okay, so if we now take a look at configuration guides in all those documents, I'm gonna go to config guides on every single tab that I just opened. By the way, notice that now it says Firepower power uppercase, where previously it was showing lowercase, so that's all marketing spelling. It's the same exact thing. Okay, config guides, and then config guides, two more times. We take a look at the actual documents, like we've got version 6 and later. Notice what it is showing you here. It is obviously showing you what particular code version the document refers to, but it is all called Firepower Management Center Configuration Guide. Take a look at this one. Well, firepower threat defense platforms, they give you another option as how you can manage FTD, which is known as Firepower Device Manager. But this is not something that you really want to use, and we will talk about why in one of the future sessions. It's still a Firepower Management Center configuration guide. Okay, we take a look at this one. Same stuff. Same stuff everywhere. So as you can see, all those different sections of the table of content for the configuration guides under security, they are actually talking about the same exact set of documents. So no matter if you go for next generation IPSV, no matter if you use the Firepower Threat Defense 2100 series, and finally when you just use the Firepower Management Center option, it is all gonna get you to the same exact place. If I were now to open the configuration guide, like for example for 6.1, the reason why it is gonna work for any type of firepower system, like with ASA or without ASA, is that they will tell you in some subsections, as you can see here, they are specifically applying to certain types of appliances, like 7000, 8000 series. And if we take a look at this portion, there is also a section that is known as classic devices. Classic device configuration. So classic device. So this is talking about regular firepower without a firewall capabilities. So anytime you see Firepower Threat Defense, like here, this is talking about the next generation firewall, which is once again firewall, just the ASA and firepower and next generation IPS, plus some of the newer features. Versus when you say classic devices, this is for, in this case, 7-8000 series, this is going to be next generation IPS.